Investing in mental health, in that case, as an organization, then has double benefits, both for the organization and even for the shareholders, and then ultimately for the employees. So it's a win-win situation. Okay. So I'm going to be presenting on occupational mental wellness. It's a very broad topic. So I'm just going to look at it from the point, just to add to continue from what Purity is saying. Things have changed because of COVID. So even before COVID, mental health is something that probably has not been given such a priority in our lives, in our organizations, in our country. But now COVID came and stressed that further. So I'm going to just talk briefly about occupational mental wellness, but in light of the changes that are going on in COVID. So my presentation is going to have a small introduction, and then we're going to look at the psychological effects of the change that has been brought by COVID. So we know that COVID has, it's affected us physically. There's the disease itself. We know that there is a loss of finances, but what about psychologically? How have these changes affected us psychologically? We're also going to look at, just briefly to understand the process of change from a psychological perspective and in light of productivity at the workplace. We're also going to look at, so what can the worker, the employee do to make it better, and what can the employer also do so that we're not only looking and saying, the employer or, the HR or the organization can do this and that and the other, but we're saying, as an employee, do I also have a role in that? Yeah? And then we are going to have the Q&A session after that. So my introduction basically is just to give context. Yeah. So where we are now and where we've been in the last couple of months. And so we've had to adjust our lives, due to the COVID changes that have come along. And I know the presentations that have been made here in the last several months, I know the words new normal have been used, more than probably any other terms that have come up during the trainings. And it's true, we have had to adjust a lot at home, and especially because now we started working from home. So we see that our routines had to change. We started working from home, there were all these bans and things that came about. And so we had to do things differently. We have had to learn conflict management in various capacities, and this is the home front. So for example, we saw that we had a lot of cases of gender-based violence. We are hearing marriages are in trouble at the moment because of just the pressures that have come with this, and probably just being in each other's space. Now we are together 24/7. Probably it's not a bad thing, but we were not used to that, and we needed to adjust to that. And of course, it came with some friction. We've had to do 24/7 parenting. For a lot of us, we used to see our children probably in the morning before we all go to our respective occupation. I go to work and my husband and probably the children go to school. In the evening, probably we may or may not even see them, because maybe by the time I get home, they're asleep. Or maybe if I see them, we have dinner, it's also just a short period of time. And probably weekends with all the social activities, and that's what we are used to. But now we found ourselves at a place where we're having to do 24/7 parenting. And if we think it's only hard for the parents, maybe we also need to ask for the children. They've also been complaining, it's a good thing to have parents at home, but they've also, their sense of autonomy has also almost, been muted a bit. Yeah. However, we are coming from that space now. We are at a place where we are seeing the numbers are dropping for COVID, but even if they are not, we are saying, okay, we cannot stay in this bubble forever. So we are seeing more and more economies opening up. Yeah? And we're seeing some of the socially related bans being lifted. For a long time, we, as a country, alcohol was not being sold in social places. And now we are seeing that is back. We are seeing the hours. First, we had to be home by 7, then by 9, now by 11. So, life is slowly creeping back to what it used to be, just the structures, but we have to readjust back to that, because it's getting back to that, but so much has changed. So it's not really in the same way. So that's on the social front, and that's on the home front. But when we look at the workplace, how does going back to work look like now? Yeah. So as I said, yes, we are going back, but so much has changed. So it won't be things as they used to be. Yeah. And so we see that there will be a need, and there's a need for change, to manage the change from, first of all, what was before COVID, then what was during COVID, and post-COVID. So we need to manage that change. And for that to happen, we need a multifaceted approach as organizations. So we will require financial experts to tell us, you know, how can we make best what we have in terms of resources? COVID has come and it has given our finances a beating. Business slowed down. For some, it completely shut down. So we need financial experts to come and tell us, how do we move on from here? Yeah, we need HR specialists to come and tell us how staffing will look going forward. Many organizations have had to let go of people. They've had to restructure. So, and on top of that, we are having now that we have adopted more of technology. So it means that probably some roles that were being done by people are no longer there. So much has happened. HR we even say, okay, this mentioned here, but those are like the red-headed step, that thing that is there at the back, that yes, we probably remember it when someone is very badly off. It's more it's more we react to it rather than be proactive about it. Yeah. So one of the things that I'd like us to think about today is, how do we bring mental health to the table? The psychological aspect of these employees as they go through all these changes that we've been talking about. Yeah. So let's look at some of the things that have changed. Again, these are things that we all know, but I just wanted to bring them at the fore of our minds as we continue with this presentation. So we are looking at social distancing in its very many ways that it has affected us, but let's look at it in the office now. There's a routine. A lot of us, when we get to the office, there's this person you shake hands, there's this person you hug, there's a kind of socialization that we used to have. Now that is not there anymore. It's been very awkward, but I think we're getting used to it slowly by slowly. So it's either an elbow bump or, you know, whatever it is. Sometimes it's just a verbal greeting. Yeah. So those are some of the things that have changed. And we look at tea break socializing. Quite a good number of organizations have maybe like a tea urn somewhere we go and have our tea break, and we meal around the tea urn. We catch up, you know, about what is happening in each other's social life and everything. Now that's not the same anymore. It's probably that you have to have your own cup. We don't even share cups anymore. You have to have your cup. You have to go get your tea. If you know, ideally, if you're having tea, I'm sitting here and the other person is sitting there and the other person is sitting, you know, the social distance. And no, we look at the anxiety of every morning for people who have to take public transport to get to work. Yeah. Every morning and every evening. I know so many people who it's still a very big concern for them. They get so much anxiety when they think about having to take public transport. Some organizations have made this better. They are dropping and picking. But yeah, so not all organizations have been able to do that. So that's the employees who have to have that constant anxiety of, is today the day that I catch this disease? Or even if it's not me, my family member. And if my family member catches it, most probably I'll also get it. And then we now have a preoccupation with hygiene. Some things that we never really think about. Before, I could walk to my colleague's desk and just pick a pen oh, now that colleague will not be very happy. I can no longer just go and pick a pen from my colleague's desk. Or even a computer or a laptop, we say, no, let me just check something. No, now we are very preoccupied with hygiene. So these are small things, but they do add up. Yeah. So that's on the front of social distancing. Then we're saying for a lot of people, we've been out of work for quite a long time, doing, very skeleton. We're just a skeleton staff and doing just the basic necessities that we need to do. But we need to get back into the grind. And so we need to reacquaint ourselves with the processes at work. Let me give an example. Every time I close, so my day job, what I do more is counseling, having counseling sessions. And so every time I close in December, I normally don't see clients. So every time I close in December, and then I reopen like second week of January, every time I have the first client or the first two clients, I really struggle. Yeah, not that I don't know what I'm doing, but just, getting back to that momentum. So that's something we are also going to see happening. Yeah? And then we know the organizational structures have changed. Probably the boss used to report to is no longer there. So I'm having to report to a new boss. And so we need to start building that rapport. We also know that there are very many layoffs that happened. So I'm saying probably I'm even going back. My two best friends in the office probably are not there, or the one best friend, that person who, I could talk to, I could socialize with, that person is no longer there. That is something that I will have to deal with. Then we have the financial challenges. People have gone with pay cuts. We have seen one of the things, at least even before the pay cuts, was that the benefits were the first things were among the first things to be taken away. So people are adjusting to that. Pay cuts and less benefits and many other financial struggles. So we know that a lot of employees are coming back probably with loans. They've had to take loans so that they can make do with life. Yeah, maybe to parent, maybe to right now, children need to go back to school. Some have still been doing the online classes. So maybe these employees took loans to be able to deal with that. And then just the work itself. Yeah, there will be difficulty. We are saying for the organizations where they've had to lay people off, it means probably that we were two doing this job and they've had to let go my colleague. So all this job, the targets are still the same and I have to do that work myself. So that's more pressure. And then we're also saying, and this is a good case in point where we are doing our trainings using IT and many other forms. I also had to adjust and start taking counseling, Zoom sessions for counseling. So these are things then, some people it might be easier to adjust to, for some people it's a bit technical. Yeah? And then we're saying that even as we work the same job, even if it's the same job, we are saying we're working with reduced budgets, obviously because the economy has not been as good as it's been. And so for example, I'm thinking of people who do business development or salespeople, and for them maybe someone holds a regional post. So during this time, they were not able to travel to their clients in Kampala or their clients in, Nigeria or wherever it is that they go. So it's more frustrating. It's more difficult to do the job that they normally do. So what are some of the psychological effects of this change? And for the changes that I've just talked about, remember again, I said that list was not comprehensive. It was just for us to be able to appreciate the changes that our employees are facing, right? So when we talk about our, the psychology, we usually look at three main areas. We look at the emotional aspect, we look at the mental, or what sometimes we call cognitive, and then we look at the behavior. This is how, as a psychologist, that's how we assess people and how they are doing psychologically. So some of the emotional effects, and again, this list again is not comprehensive, but we are seeing depression on the rise. And I think a lot of us, even though we might not definitely diagnose, I mean, we're not even supposed to diagnose, but you can see someone who's extremely sad, someone who is becoming in a state of worry, and those are some of the signs of depression. We are also seeing people who are living in anxiety. For me, specifically, when COVID began, maybe the first few months, this anxiety for me was the one that took over me. I don't know. I think I was anxious. Will I get the disease? With any of my family get the disease? I was anxious. How do I continue seeing my clients? What do I do with my clients? That was before I went to Zoom. So, and there's just a lot of anxiety going on. What's going to happen to the world? And I know a lot of people are going through that. Yeah. And then people have grief. Grief comes as a result of loss. And so in my previous slides, I've talked, people are dealing with loss of income. There are people who are dealing with loss of the job altogether, leave alone pay cuts and loss of benefits. People have lost people due to COVID. And even if it's not due to COVID, just the other diseases or accidents, people are grieving. And the grieving this time is not how we used to do it. Yeah, we are mourning differently. We are having our meetings, our burial meetings online. Yeah, so the grieving family can find themselves very, isolated and having to deal with the grief by themselves. So we also see that people have a sense of hopelessness. Hopelessness is one of the key things that leads to suicide. Yeah? You can have depression, you can have anxiety, you can have all these things, but as long as you haven't lost hope, then it's unlikely to lead to suicide. But the minute someone is feeling hopeless, they feel that they've reached the end, they feel that this is it's never gonna change, this is what it's always going to be, that then can lead to suicide. We're also seeing anger. People are angry. Yeah. And we are seeing some of the effects. I think some time back we saw someone who went into their employer's office with a panga, and they were threatening to harm that person. And this guy later went actually and committed suicide. We've also seen the rise in gender-based violence. We've seen people are dealing with so much anger, anger because of the loss, anger because of being in a state of not understanding, of uncertainty, and all these things. So it's very easy, today if Matiang'i says schools are going to open or they won't open, and someone else says something politically, we all lash out. So we can see that some of the lashing is just about what the government is saying or what this other. It's just that we have so much anger within us. And some of the mental difficulties that we're having is just being unable to concentrate. You find yourself being very forgetful or with a brain fog, things that you could easily just remember. Now it takes you a bit longer to think. Or how you could do simple calculations in your head, maybe additions or subtraction, or now you find yourself it's a bit difficult. And then irrational thinking is where sometimes it can be you're thinking catastrophically. This is it, my life is over, nothing is ever going to go back to normal, such things. So that's irrational thinking. And then we look at some of the other things that we're seeing in behavior. Is drug and substance abuse is on the rise, and we've seen that. We've seen aggression, and part of this is what we are saying can be seen in what is happening in our homes. Couples are fighting very much, and that's just one of it. There are many other areas where we've seen the aggression. There's a level of restlessness, and then there's just lethargy. And I do get that sometimes as well, when I know I have this list and I need to do these things, but for some reason I don't feel like doing it. And then we'll also see absenteeism, just because of the other things that these people are dealing with. Yeah. So those are some of the psychological effects of the changes that have been brought to us by COVID. So I just wanted to bring this in, the change process, just for us to understand from two perspectives. As an employee, just for you to understand where you are in this change model, but then also as an employer to realize the change process goes hand in hand with an employee's productivity, so that an employee is not in one stage where they're really struggling and the employer is expecting stellar performance from this employee. So it has 5 stages. We have late status quo or old status quo. Then we have resistance. We have the chaos. We have integration and new status quo. Let me explain that more with the aid of this diagram. Now, this was theorized by, she's called Virginia Satir. And so she said that change happens in 5, in 5 reasons. There are many other ways to look at change, but I wanted to look at this specifically just because of how it affects productivity. Yeah. So at the beginning, we have the old status quo. Things were working the way they were working. This was pre-COVID, and we knew what we were supposed to, our targets, what we were supposed to, and we were working towards them. And then the foreign element there in red, for us, that was COVID, and COVID happened. And we could not continue walking in the same stride and singing that tune that that gentleman is doing. And so when that happened, it's like this valley that now we needed to go through. And initially it's resistance. I will tell you, for me, the resistance was changing. I come from a very old school, and anyway, that's what we're taught in psychology. When we're learning psychology, we're told, some of these things like counseling, you need to have that one-on-one touch. You need to be present with that person. You need to be seeing them from head to toe, So we have for so long frowned upon online counseling and online therapy. So I can't tell you, I was that person who's hanging on that, the 1, 2, 3, the third person who's hanging on that cliff, because I was there and I was wondering, what do I do? I have clients, I have ongoing clients. I cannot tell them, let's wait until this thing is over. Yeah, I could do that, not to take new clients, but what about the clients that I have? So we find ourselves in that area of resistance. But the cliff is still, and you can see it's almost vertical. So there's really nothing to hold on to, and you get yourself into the chaos stage. Yeah. So during this time, the productivity is also going down. Yeah. So the resistance, you're still trying to be optimal, but you find yourself, you can't be the way you are. In the chaos stage now, for sure, productivity is almost at 0. It's when you hit, now you literally hit the ground. And that's the point where either 2 things can happen. You either remain there, or then you accept that things have changed, and so we need to do something different. Yeah. And so the transforming idea. So there are many transforming ideas that have come up during this time. And for me specifically, as I address this, the transforming idea here, I would want to talk about the need to acknowledge mental health, and what it's doing to us, how it's affecting our productivity, and how it's affecting the things that we do and how we do it. Yeah. And so as organizations, as we embrace mental health, then we are able to, and all the other changes, there are many things, there are many ideas there, but I wanted specifically just to highlight on the mental health. And then so we begin then looking at it, okay, so how can we incorporate this new idea? So for example, mental health, for us to be able to be at a better place than we were. Yeah. And it's not an easy switch. Yeah, it's something that it's jumping through hoops and jumping through logs. For example, seeing a counselor, if it gets to that, it's not an easy thing. And there are many people who, even though they know they need help, the idea of coming and being vulnerable to someone else becomes a bit difficult. Yeah. So there will be the need to rise above that, the difficulty, probably on an organizational level. Yeah. How, and maybe an employer could be thinking, right now we are saying that the economy is bad, our finances are not good. How are you telling us again to invest in mental health? Yeah. So it means there's a level of difficulty, whether it's on a personal level, whether it's an organizational level, but it's necessary. It's necessary. And once we are able to get past that, then we have a new status quo, and usually it becomes better than what was before. As you can see, the level where we old status quo was, because now if we're able to embrace all these other changes that we're talking about, the new way of probably using technology, how we manage our finances, all these things, if and also mental health. We are saying that, so it means that we are better off than where we were before the crisis, because now maybe we are more aware of our mental health. Yeah. So that's something I just wanted to highlight. So moving forward, what are some of the things then as an employee I can do, and also what's the role of my employer in this change? Yeah. So let's start with the worker. Yeah. That's the employee. Number one, it's important to realize that your mental wellness is your own responsibility. Yeah. So for example, let's say even about if you're not well physically, let's not even say mental health. If you're sick, it's one thing your employer to have a cover for you, but it's another thing for you then to agree to go see a doctor, to make time to go see a doctor. Yeah. Or even if that cover is not there, to know that it's my health and I need to take responsibility for that. So it's important for you to take charge of your own physical well-being and self-care. We cannot delegate that. That's one of the things you cannot delegate. You cannot delegate to your spouse. You cannot delegate to your manager. You cannot delegate to your employer. You need to take charge. And self-care is any number of things. It's knowing when to say no. It's knowing when to say, I need help. It's knowing when to say, I probably need to take a break. It's, you know, it's all those things. It's knowing how much to probably like saving up for that small holiday that I need to. Yeah, it's prioritizing that I know this money, I can do something else with it, but I need to take a few days off and go somewhere different and just relax. That's what I mean. Yeah? And then secondly, you need to understand the process of change, the one that I've just talked about. You need to monitor what stage you are in. Awareness is one of the key things that we talk about in mental health. When you know I'm in this, you know, I'm in the chaos stage, I'm at that point where I'm just down and out. Yeah. So that's what we're saying. I need to know how that is affecting me. I need to know how that's affecting my work. I need to know what to do about that. So it's important to understand that process of change. Am I still at the resistance? And you know, we'll all go through that curve very differently. The people who will remain at the resistance, which is the second stage, for a very long time, because they're still either in denial, things haven't changed, or don't want to put in the work to change or anything. So we will all go through that change curve at different paces. So it's good to monitor the stage that you are in. And then we need to speak up. That also goes to in line with the first point of taking responsibility. Speak up when you're not okay. Maybe it's to find a support group for whatever it is that you're struggling about. Yeah. Maybe you need to speak to your line manager. Maybe you need to speak with your, you know, HR. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's colleague, maybe it's a friend, but we need to speak up. Yeah, we are seeing a lot of people who are suffering in silence. One of the key things, again, in mental health that we keep, one of our slogan is break the silence. Please speak up. Yeah, and then be your brother's keeper. It is not time for office politics. And we know office politics have been there and will always be there. But everyone is struggling. At this point, everyone really is struggling in one way or the other. Can we just be brothers or sisters keeper? Let's be there for each other. And one of the other things we know that it's very difficult for you in this organization or in this team or in this department, that I'm just rising by myself. Yeah, it's easier when we're rising as a team. They hold me up and I hold the other person. So that's important. Let's not stigmatize our colleagues who are struggling in one way or the other with their health. So whether it's mental health issues or whether it's COVID issues, COVID related, let's not stigmatize. This is not the time to stigmatize. In fact, one of the things that you could do is educate yourself more. Yeah, mental health is one of those key areas that is very least understood. So sometimes when we see someone with maybe schizophrenia and they're having a flare up and maybe they're behaving in a way that is not the normal, it's not the time to gossip this person. Maybe it's the time to just go and understand what this person's world. What are they struggling with? Yeah. So let's not stigmatize. Also, because we have seen the prevalence of, and I'm going to talk about it more at the end, the prevalence of mental health. Yeah. So it could be that person today, it could be you tomorrow, it could be a relative of yours tomorrow. So rather than stigmatize, let's educate ourselves and see how we can support our colleagues who are going through that. Now, secondly, I want to look at what's the role of the employer in occupational mental wellness or the management. It's number one, to understand that performance will vary through the change curve. So adjust your expectations. The targets that you had set for your employees before all this happened, surely we need to adjust them now. We need to realistically adjust them to in line with the situation that we found ourselves in. Yeah. So again, monitor. If one, and again, as I said, each employee will go through this curve differently. Yeah. So an employee who probably was able to adjust very quickly, passed by resistance, and is now integrating will be very different from one who is still in resistance or one who is in the chaos. So it's to understand that performance will vary through the change curve, but more importantly, to support them where they are and not to make demands that may be unrealistic, not because this person doesn't want, but just their psychological mindset has not become in tune with the changes that are going on. Secondly, show empathy. Workers are dealing with a lot, both at the work and in their personal lives. Remember where I started with, and I highlighted some of the issues that we're dealing at home, and of course, the issues that also we are dealing with at work. So it's important to show empathy. Yeah? And right now, and especially with this working from home, it's become a bit difficult because we are not there with our employees. We are not there with them. It's just become, maybe we chat through email, we chat on phone, but we know it's different. So we need to go as management, as employers, we need to go an extra mile to just find out how our employees are doing. And then motivate your employees. Times are hard. You can use I understand times are hard, but you can use non-monetary methods of recognition. I know this is usually one of the key aspect of HR, motivating employees. So now, and this has been just during when times were okay. Now that we're going through COVID, this is even more truer and more needed more than ever. And one of the other things about motivation is to consider the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, and to get that, the source of motivation may have changed. What do I mean? Let's look at this screen that I know a lot of us have interacted with. So maybe before COVID, so and we start with the lowest level physiological needs. These are people, food, water, and warmth, and rest are their immediate needs. And then probably as those needs continue to be met, we see the next issues of concern are, your safety needs. Do I live in a secure place? Am I safe in my day-to-day? And then belongingness and love, how are our friendships, how are my intimate relationships, and so forth. It goes higher. Now, before COVID, probably we had employees who were at the esteem needs, prestige, and feeling of accomplishment. It was about what's my next promotion. It was about my salary scale, my next salary scale, and all. But then COVID happened, and probably their relationships have taken a beating. So probably right now, their biggest source of motivation lies around the third tier, belongingness and love. Or maybe someone, because of the hard economic times, they lost their home. They don't even have a home. Yeah. So probably they don't, now they're dealing with either okay, maybe not the first, but the second, safety needs. Where do I get another house? Am I secure? So also, that's what I'm saying, as an organization, it's important for the employer to gauge, to evaluate where each employee is, and so that when you're motivating them, then it's in line with their needs, not to just assume this employee, this is what they need. They may have needed that before COVID, but after COVID, they may be looking into different things. What else can the employer do? Organize town hall meetings. Again, as I said, we are dealing with a time where we are not even together in an office. Yeah. So how else can we do that? They can be virtual meetings, but it's important to have these meetings where we communicate the changes that involve employees as much as is possible. Let's not send them emails to tell them they no longer have a job or that there's going to be a restructuring. Let's organize, let them feel part of it. And it's easier for them even to understand that, yes, it's true. This problem, we have seen it growing because we keep being informed at every stage. And we have even seen the management try this and try that. And so at this point, when they have to make this decision, as an employee, I might not like it, but I have seen them change. So it's important to organize town hall meetings and be able to communicate to employees as often and as is possible. And then do not stigmatize employees with mental issues. People with mental health issues can be just as productive as other people. So let's not penalize them because they're having an episode during this time. Yeah, just the same way if someone maybe got a very bad bout of malaria and for 1 month they're out, we don't say now we will fire you or something. We find a way. So even mental health issues, it doesn't mean, one of the myths is that someone with mental health issues are always maybe unwell or they are not able to be productive. They are able to be productive with the right support and correct treatment. They can be just as productive. So with that, it's important to recognize the mental health that mental health wellness correlates to productivity. As I said, so if an employee has mental health issues, at that time they're having a flare-up, they don't have treatment, they're not getting supported, for sure at that time productivity is low. But if they're able to be supported well, they're able to be, mental health services are able to be made accessible to them, then they can be as productive as everyone else. EAPs are employee assistance programs, and that's one of the ways that employers can help their employees in that, is to put programs in place that ensure that, for example, the employees are able to access mental health services when they need to. And maybe just to speak more about that, one of the other things that I've been really, really advocating for, and especially during this COVID time, but even before that, is that at the workplace, we need mental health policies. A lot of organizations I know have, I think, just a wellness, generally a wellness policy, but we need one that is specifically for mental health, even if it then just becomes a subset of the employee wellness policy. Yeah. So what does it look like? This mental health policy will include promotion of mental health, and then prevention, treatment, and recovery. It's going to highlight how do we go about promotion of mental health. Again, sometimes we are getting where we are getting, and there are things that could have been prevented, but we didn't catch this in time. We didn't have programs and structures in place. Probably our work environment is very intense. It's very intense, very high pressure. And well, that may not change. What can we do as an organization to help employees deal with that kind of pressure? Yeah, because we understand we can't say we will eliminate all pressure from our environment. So we can have programs that promote, prevent, and then we'll also look at how treatment can be done and recovery. Yeah, a mental health policy also outlines what are the specific things that we hope to be done. Why do we need to do them? How are they going to be done? When, maybe it's something, if let's say we're talking about promotion of mental health, yeah, maybe we're talking about having programs that say every month we have someone who comes to talk to us about this and that. Yeah. So how often? Can we say once a month? Can we say once every 2 months? So that's the when. If it's one big thing, we'll say every year we'll have this one big day where we talk about, probably at some time in October, a whole day, and all we do is talk about mental health. And then who? Yeah, sometimes you have very good policies, but they do not outline who is responsible. Who's responsible for the implementation of the policy at the workplace? And is it a representative? Because sometimes we just leave it to the desk of HR. But this one, we are saying maybe we need a a representative from diverse areas of the organization. Another important key thing when we are looking at developing a workplace mental health policy is then that you need one that considers the needs of your organization. Probably the stress and the pressure that an organization in one industry faces is very different from another one. So we need a very tailor-made for your organization. And then also one that considers the resources available. Yeah, we can have something that for your organization, this is the budget you have. Yeah, one of the things that I like about having a mental health policy in place is that then when we are dealing with mental health, it's not a firefighting kind of thing. We are saying, no, we have a mental health policy and we even have a budget for it. Yeah. As psychologists, we will tell you a lot of times we get organizations calling us and they're like, no, we don't have a budget for this, but you just come and do this and do that. And we're trying to change that because it just means it's almost like an afterthought. Yeah, let's plan for it. Let's say that every 6 months or we have a psychologist who comes and this is the budget in place. Yeah, because sometimes we usually say, probably you'll get someone who'll come and do it for free. But we say usually you get what you pay for. Yeah, so probably even the quality of the service provider that you'll get will not be as effective. So now we have looked at the changes that we have experienced. We've looked at the process of change and the different stages that people are. We've also looked at the role of the employee and the role of the employer. Yeah. And so as I come to the end of my presentation, I want to speak to the management who can pass this information to shareholders, that we are saying that if you're investing in mental health, remember I said what the theme for this year is investing in mental health. We are saying it's actually an investment. What does a good investment do? It pays you back. And through the rest of my slides, I'm going to show that the importance of investing in mental health as an organization. Now, so we are saying mental health has cost and has benefit. So we're saying 1 in every 4 people will suffer with a mental illness. So right now, randomly count the number of people you have in your organization. So we are saying at least 1 in every 4. So if you have 12 employees, we're saying 3 have a mental illness. Yeah. Now, let's see what the cost of that is if it's left untreated. We are saying depression affects a person's ability to complete a physical job about 20% of the time. Yeah, that's a high percentage. Yeah, so we are saying 20%. So for example, if we were to count the days of the week, we are saying if it's a work week of Monday to Friday, every 1 day in a week, this person is not able to perform or complete a physical job if it's someone who deals with physical job of the time, and reduces cognitive performance. Now, all of us apply cognitive. We might not all do a physical job, but all of us, our work will involve one way or the other, our cognitive performance to about 35% of the time. So we are saying, A, very many people are struggling with mental health, and B, this struggle is affecting our business. So we're also saying 60% of people diagnosed with anxiety disorder say it interferes with relationship and coworkers. So we're saying that for sure, I don't know how we'll screen and not have people with mental health, because we're saying 1 in every 4. So for sure we have people with mental health, and we are saying it's costing the organization those things. We are saying it's affecting our interpersonal relationships. We are saying it's affecting how we do our job. So that's on the negative side. Now, these are the benefits that I'm talking about. 80% of employees treated for mental health issues report improvement in their job satisfaction and productivity. So we are saying if we invest as an organization, if we invest in mental health, we're saying 80%, the improvement in productivity is very evident. And that's why I said at the beginning, people with mental health issues can be just as productive as everyone else. As long as they're supported. But this is my best. We are saying for every $1 put into mental disorder treatment, there's a return of $4 US dollars in productivity. I keep joking and saying, I don't know many investments that give such a high return. In fact, recently, last week, I saw a report by WHO. In fact, they say for $1 invested, there's a $5 return in productivity. So that's my presentation today. I'd like to end there, and I hope that I have been able to highlight why we need mental health interventions in our organization. Thank you very much for your audience. Purity, back to you.
Thank you so much, Faith. I think that was very, very insightful. I feel like I've just paid for a 5,000 session in mental health, and I can't appreciate it anymore. And I think I hope this really starts conversations around mental health, especially at the workplace, because workplace brings together different people, different backgrounds, different understandings, and just to make sure that everyone is blending, everyone is really working towards the same goal. It's becoming now a huge challenge for workplaces. So I hope this is the very start of talking, not only at organization level, but also at a personal level. We become more intentional in terms of our mental health. I will take a few questions. The first question is from Lucy. She's asking, my question is, what are some of the ways one can improve the uptake of mental health services provided by an organization? This is from an external service provider. So how are we able to improve the uptake of mental health services?
Okay, thank you. Very good question. Again, also because we also have seen where people have developed this, they have the programs, they have the policies, but then the uptake is low. In fact, the other day I was talking to someone who works for one of these very big IT organizations, and he was like, yeah, I think we have one, but I don't know, I've never used it. But this is the thing, you know, with these programs, we have to talk about them. You have to sensitize your employees. Yeah, so that's where I'm saying some of these talks have people come and sensitize. A lot of times in mental health, we don't even know we have a problem that needs intervention. Yeah, so probably you need people to come and talk about it and say, you know, because this what you're going through is not normal, and A and B, it can be sorted out. And we are saying that even the resources are available. So keep communicating with your employees, whether it's internal, whether it's the person responsible for these programs internally, or just have people from outside to come and talk about it.
All right, thank you for that, Faith. Let me just ask you, in terms of these services that are paid for organizations and the utilization is not there, as much as you create the awareness, I think it's an element of fear that these people feel if they contact someone else outside of the organization, either it leads to discrimination. What is your view in the space of confidentiality of information shared during these kind of sessions, especially those that are paid for by organizations?
Thank you, Purity. Another very interesting perspective. And I have seen that in my experience. There are times where, so there's this organization that sometimes I consult for, and they do take insurance, and an employee would come from one of the organizations and they'll say, no, I'll pay from my pocket, just that they don't want to leave a track. Yeah. So two things. Number one, on the area of the organizations, again, to communicate and say that whatever is discussed, the confidentiality levels that are discussed, whatever happens with you in the therapy sessions is between you and your therapist. Yeah. But I also tell you, maybe just one of the things that they can communicate to their employees is that if you have a good, and most of us ethical, because ethically, I am not required to reveal any information about my clients to a third party. Yeah, it's only under, we usually say we have limits, and me talking to the employer is not the limit. The limit is only if this information could the person has shared with me something like, after this, I'm going to jump off a bridge. If someone's life is in danger, that's the only time we disclose, we breach the confidentiality. And even then, it's not that. I need to tell that person that because of the information you've given me, I will need to communicate. But yeah, so maybe to tell them that psychologists, our training is one that does not allow us, at least ethically, to disclose the information. But also the employer can again talk about this and just tell them whatever is discussed with your therapist is between you and your therapist.
All right, thank you so much, Faith, for that. We'll take another question from Herbert. He's asking, the financial strain on employees and employer at home with increased dependence affected by COVID-19, how do we navigate this?
Okay, so I will answer the psychological aspect of it. I will not go into how to do how to improve your finances. I think that's someone else will be better off with that topic. But I think for me, it's just the psychology of it. And I think it's just some of the things that I've already talked about. Number one, you identify, how is it affecting me emotionally? What are some of the emotions that are coming from me not being where I was financially? Am I finding myself feeling depressed? Am I finding myself angry? Yeah. How is it affecting me cognitively in my mind? Am I finding myself thinking irrationally, catastrophically, that this is now it, I'm never gonna rise again? Or my behavior, how has my behavior changed due to and how has it changed negatively? Maybe as a husband, I'm finding myself being angry at the children, angry at my wife, and so causing problems, being aggressive with them. But I need to be aware that this is not about them, this is about me. So I can only speak about it in terms of the psychological aspect and how it affects. But also I'd urge, for someone like that too, first of all, there's a lot of information on the internet about how you can get back to your feet. What are some of the things that you can do, or talk to someone about it? Yeah, that could also help. And also psychologically, it's okay to talk to someone about it. We can navigate through the psychological aspect with it if you reach out to a counselor or a mental health specialist. Okay, back to you, Purity.
Thank you. Thank you, Faith, for that. I'll take another question that came through our emails, and it says, at a personal level, where does mental health fall under? Men don't talk. So I'm assuming this this question came from a man. So where do we start this conversation with men about mental health?
Okay. So first of all, let's go back to where this problem began. And maybe we can start correcting it with the ones who are not men yet. Yeah. Yes. So as children, when you have a boy and a girl, we had different expectations of how each of those two need to handle their emotions. So the girl was okay to cry. Yes, we'll tell them, maybe don't cry or whatever. But for a boy, we would shame him. We shame boys for crying. We shame boys for expressing their emotions. So let's start from there, first of all. Yeah, it's okay to cry. It's okay to express emotions. Yeah, even for girls, even for boys, it's okay to express emotions. And then some unhelpful things that we say, you're a man, be a man, or, we are human being and we have emotions, both male, both female, we have emotions. Yeah. So we are not saying the excessive crying, it's just process. It's to allow the process, because when you tell that person you're a man, what you're telling them is you don't have a right to feel this. And all emotions are valid. Anger, sadness, they're valid. But now when you're telling me it's not okay to feel that way, because that's in essence what you're telling me. But you should be telling me maybe it's okay to feel like that, but then you can do something about it. Okay. So now for the men, I can actually say that's changing. Even in our profession for so long, we didn't even have male counselors. We are getting more and more of them. So that's one way that is helping. We see men preferring to go to talk to their fellow men for counseling. So if you have someone and it's a man and who's struggling, probably they've looked around and all they see are female counselors, but you can urge them and tell them, no, we do have male counselors, but also just creating safe spaces. You see, it doesn't even have to be coming to a mental health specialist. Yeah, just how about telling, like I think there's this old boys group that was made very famous, unfortunately, when Bob Collymore died. And I would want to think that these people, other than talking about investments, other than talking about their families, they do talk about, maybe psychological issues. It's a safe space. Once someone has a safe space with a group of boys or men, that they can talk about these things, an accountability group of sorts. Yeah, so that's something else that can be helpful, and many other ways that we cannot exhaust today. Yes, Purity, back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Faith, for that. We still have a few more questions, so I think let's be a bit brief on that. From Miriam, with tight budgets as businesses get back to normalcy, how would managers get to support employees? What's your take?
One of the things, another thing that I would love to see in future is managers, how I've seen people say finance costs for non-finance managers, something like that. Yeah. So we can have that. We can have all our managers and, trained in basic counseling skills. Yeah. So that's one way. So maybe now the budgets are low and we are looking at it but in future, when things are better and we can afford it, let's train our managers so that it doesn't even have to be an outside help from outside, but we have managers and the HR person, they're trained in basic counseling skills and they can be able to talk about it. But secondly, with no budget, one of the things that goes a long way with mental health is just talking. You know what? Let's assemble groups of a small group. We say it's usually between 6 and 12 people. Let's sit down. Let's just express ourselves. Let's say it's a safe space. Let's talk about it and maybe we can do this per department. Maybe what the salespeople are dealing with could be different from what the another department is dealing with. So let's sit down as salespeople. Let's just talk. Let's talk about what we are going through. Sometimes, what that helps, you realize that, oh, you mean what I'm going through is not a personal thing. I'm not the only one who's going through that. But secondly, we also see someone will say something and I'm like, yeah, I've actually been struggling with that. So I can try that, what you have proposed. So that's something that can be done with zero budget. Back to you, Purity.
Of course, and I think a few people also missed our webinar on finances. We talked about it a few weeks ago. So I think they can also just check out our YouTube channel and see what we discuss in the space of finances. I will take one final question from Jacinta. How can one navigate concentration problems? I think she's having a problem focusing on work or whatever she's doing. So what do you think, Faith?
Sorry, I missed it. Sorry, just repeat that again.
How can one navigate on concentration problems? Focusing.
Oh, okay. I can say that's almost just another whole topic by itself. But one of the things that I can say is, number one, the awareness that right now, and especially if you're talking about right now, that you're not living in the normal days. Yeah. So sometimes is to have less pressure. Is that before, if I ticked on my list a list of 10 things, if I ticked 8, that was good. Now I might just tick 2 or 3 and it's okay. So that's number one. Number one is realizing, you remember when we were saying about the change curve and that productivity is different in every. So first of all, just less pressure, give yourself more grace. And we are also asking for the employer to be able to do that. Yeah, that we don't expect to be performing optimally while we are living in non-optimal circumstances and situations. Number two, we have a very interesting even apps that help us deal with our cognitive functioning. I think there's one called Elevate, and there are many more. They help us in the different aspects of our cognition. So maybe it's processing speed, and they have games. They're just games or questions. They help us in calculations, maybe quick additions, in some things like that. So those are two ways that I can think of on top of my mind.
All right, thank you so much, Faith, for that. I believe we've come to the end of our webinar today. We can't appreciate you enough for your knowledge, wisdom that you shared on this topic of mental health. So I will encourage all of us, if this conversation, you've not started it yet, I think it is high time we start this conversation with our own families, with our own friends, at the workplaces, all these places. So I think that marks the end of our presentation. Feel free to reach out to us in case you have any questions or if you want any follow-up from Faith. Our contact information is info@accurex.co.ke. Yeah, you can drop us an email, or you can also call us or WhatsApp us on 0715767676 or 0784989898. Make sure you follow us on social media just to see what other webinars we are planning in the coming week. This coming week also we are focusing still on mental health. So be sure to join us as we still explore other dynamics around mental health. Other than that, I have been your host, Purity Wanjiro, the director of Accurex. So continue keeping safe, maintaining distance, washing your hands, and God bless you all. Good afternoon.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.